20,000 years ago, somewhere in the frozen forests of Ice Age Europe, a hungry wolf crept toward a human campfire. It should never have gone near. Every instinct in its body screamed danger. Humans meant spears. Humans meant fire. Humans meant death. But the wolf was starving. And near the fire, half buried in the snow, were bones. Scraps of meat, fat still clinging to them. So the wolf moved closer. A human noticed. The wolf froze. For one brief moment, they simply stared at each other. One could run, one could attack, one could wait, and then something happened that would change the course of history forever. The wolf did not attack, and the human did not throw a spear. That single decision, repeated thousands of times, by thousands of wolves, over thousands of years, may be the reason that somewhere in your home tonight, a dog is sleeping beside you. This is the story of how humans tamed the wolf. Or maybe, how the wolf tamed us. To understand how dogs began, we need to go back before farms, before villages, before cows, goats, horses, and chickens. 20,000 years ago, humans were still hunter-gatherers. They followed herds across frozen landscapes. They hunted reindeer and mammoths. They slept beside fires. And they competed with wolves for many of the same prey animals. So why would humans ever allow one of the most dangerous predators on Earth to come near their camp? The answer may begin with garbage. Imagine an Ice Age hunting camp. A group of humans has just butchered a reindeer. They keep the best meat. They keep the useful skin. But much of the animal is left behind. Bones, fat, organs, scraps. To the humans, it's waste. But to a hungry wolf watching from the darkness, it's a free meal. Most wolves would have stayed far away. And for good reason. Humans were dangerous, but every once in a while, one wolf would be born slightly different. A little less fearful, a little more curious, a little more willing to take a risk. That wolf might creep closer to the fire, grab a scrap of meat, and run. If the humans didn't attack, the wolf had just discovered something important. Being near humans could mean food. Now imagine this happening over hundreds of generations. The wolves that were too fearful got nothing. The wolves that were too aggressive were driven away or killed. But the calm, curious wolves kept returning. They found food. They survived harsh winters more easily. They had more energy. And they were more likely to raise healthy pups. Slowly, nature began favoring one particular trait. Not bigger teeth, not faster legs, not stronger muscles. Calmness, the ability to tolerate humans. The willingness to stay near us. Scientists sometimes call this idea survival of the friendliest. The wolves may have domesticated themselves. Humans didn't necessarily walk into the forest and choose the nicest wolf. The wolves chose us. The calmest individuals kept coming back to our camps. And over many generations, they became less like wild wolves. They became camp followers, scavengers, and eventually, something new. But how quickly can an animal actually change just by selecting for friendliness? One of the most fascinating experiments in biology gives us an answer. In 1959, Soviet geneticist Dmitri Belyaev began an experiment with silver foxes. His question was simple. Could you recreate the early stages of domestication in a single human lifetime? His team did something surprisingly simple. Every generation, they selected the calmest foxes, the ones that were least afraid, the ones that tolerated human contact, the ones that didn't immediately attack or flee. Then they bred those foxes together and repeated the process. They weren't selecting for floppy ears. They weren't selecting for wagging tails. They weren't selecting for playful behavior. They were selecting only for tameness. But within just a few generations, something strange began to happen. Some foxes started wagging their tails. Others actively sought human attention. They became playful. They became affectionate. And some developed physical changes too. Floppy ears, different coats, shorter faces, traits that nobody had deliberately selected for. Within decades, the foxes began looking and behaving eerily like dogs. The experiment suggested something remarkable. Selecting for friendliness alone can cause an entire collection of dog-like traits to appear. And perhaps nature had already performed the same experiment thousands of years earlier. Not in a laboratory, but around ancient campfires. With wolves, scraps of meat, and time. But there is another theory. Maybe humans weren't simply passive observers. Maybe we actively adopted wolves. Imagine ancient hunters finding a wolf den. The adult wolves are gone. Inside are helpless pups, small, warm, whimpering, and difficult to ignore. Humans have adopted wild animal babies for thousands of years, and ancient people may have done the same with wolf pups. A wolf raised from infancy around humans would be very different from a wild wolf. It could learn to trust people. It could bond with a human family. And eventually, it could become useful. Wolves have incredible senses. Their noses can detect prey and danger long before humans can. Their ears can hear movement across the landscape. A wolf sleeping near a camp could become a living alarm system. A growl in the darkness might warn the entire group that something was approaching. A bear, a rival human group, or another pack of wolves. And during a hunt, wolves could offer something humans didn't have: speed, stamina, and an extraordinary sense of smell. Perhaps humans provided strategy and weapons, while wolves helped track and chase prey. If this theory is correct, humans didn't just wait for wolves to become tame. They actively chose which ones to keep, which ones to feed, and which ones to let go. But which theory is correct? Did wolves domesticate themselves? Or did humans domesticate wolves? The most likely answer is both. Perhaps the relationship began with self-domestication. Calm wolves approached human camps for food. Over generations, natural selection made them more comfortable around people. Then, once these calmer wolves existed, humans began to notice their potential. They fed certain individuals, raised wolf pups, kept the animals that were useful, and encouraged the traits they liked. Nature opened the door. Humans walked through it. This is why many scientists describe the origin of dogs as co-evolution. Two species changing each other at the same time. Humans changed wolves. But wolves also changed humans. They may have helped us hunt. They may have warned us about danger. They may have provided warmth on freezing nights. And perhaps, just as importantly, they gave humans companionship. The exact origin of dogs is still debated. Genetic studies have produced different answers. Some evidence points toward Europe. Other research suggests Central Asia, Siberia, or East Asia. Some researchers have even suggested that domestication may have happened more than once, in different places, among different human populations. Perhaps several groups of ancient humans independently allowed wolves to approach their fires. And perhaps those early dog populations later mixed as humans migrated across the world. The exact timeline is also uncertain. Estimates range from roughly 15,000 years ago to possibly 40,000 years ago. Some ancient remains look more dog-like than wolf-like. But scientists still debate whether these were truly early dogs, or simply unusual wolves. What almost everyone agrees on is this: dogs were the first animals humans domesticated, before goats, before sheep, before cattle, before horses, before agriculture itself. Dogs were already beside the human fire. And perhaps the most powerful evidence isn't just found in bones or DNA. It's found in graves. At the ancient site of Bonn-Oberkassel in Germany, archaeologists discovered a burial roughly 14,000 years old. Two humans had been buried alongside a dog. The dog had suffered from a serious illness as a puppy, an illness that should probably have killed it. But it survived for months, which means someone had cared for it, fed it, protected it, nursed it, not because the animal was useful at that moment. It was sick. It couldn't hunt. It couldn't guard the camp. Someone cared for it simply because they didn't want it to die. And when the dog eventually died, it was buried beside humans. That's more than utility. That's attachment. That's grief. That's family. And perhaps the strangest part of this story is that humans may have changed too. Some researchers have suggested that humans went through a form of self-domestication. Over thousands of years, we may have become more cooperative, more tolerant, less aggressive toward members of our own species. If that's true, then maybe the story of dogs is not simply about one species becoming tame. Maybe two species were changing together, on opposite sides of the same fire, both learning that cooperation could be more valuable than aggression. Now imagine one possible moment. A small Ice Age camp. A lean wolf has been appearing at the edge of the firelight for days. Never close enough to touch. Never far enough to disappear. Each morning, a young boy throws it a piece of meat. The wolf hesitates, moves forward, grabs the food, and runs away. The adults don't trust it. They know what wolves are capable of, but the boy keeps feeding it. One night, something moves in the darkness. The wolf wakes first. It growls, low, deep, urgent. The humans hear it. They grab their weapons and discover another group approaching through the snow. The wolf has warned them. The danger is stopped, and suddenly, the animal that once seemed like a threat has become something else. A protector, a partner, a friend. Perhaps no single moment like this ever happened. Perhaps it happened in 1,000 different ways. A scrap of meat, a warning growl, a rescued pup, a wolf that didn't run, a human who decided not to throw the spear. Each moment was small, but together, over thousands of years, they created one of the most successful partnerships in the history of life. The evidence is written into the bones. As wolves became dogs, their skulls changed. Their snouts became shorter. Their teeth became more crowded. Their bodies became different from those of wild wolves. Ancient DNA tells another part of the story. By comparing genetic material from ancient dogs and wolves, scientists can trace population changes, migrations, and interbreeding. The picture is complicated. The exact birthplace of dogs is still debated. But the larger story is clear. At some point, an ancient population of wolves crossed a line. They stopped being completely wild, and they became something that could live with us, something that could understand us, something that could depend on us, and eventually, something that we could depend on. Today, every dog alive, from the smallest Chihuahua to the largest Mastiff, ultimately descends from those ancient wolves. The wolves that dared to come closer, the wolves that tolerated the fire, the wolves that learned that humans could mean food instead of danger. And when you look into a dog's eyes today, you're seeing the result of tens of thousands of years of selection. Selection for trust, for cooperation, for the ability to understand human behavior. When your dog tilts its head at your voice, when it presses against you when you're upset, when it suddenly barks at something in the darkness before you even notice it, you're not simply looking at a trained pet. You're looking at the living result of one of the oldest partnerships on Earth. A partnership that began with no leash, no collar, no plan, just a hungry wolf, a human fire, and a decision. The wolf could run, the human could attack, but neither did. And from that tiny moment of trust came something extraordinary. A relationship that survived the Ice Age, survived the rise of agriculture, survived the birth of cities, and survived thousands of years of human history. So the next time your dog curls up beside you, or nudges your hand for attention, or watches the darkness while you sleep, remember what you're really looking at. Not just a pet, but the descendant of an ancient wolf that once made an impossible choice. To come closer, to stay, and maybe that's why the story of dog domestication has never really had a simple ending. We call it the taming of the wolf. But after everything we now know, maybe the real question is, who really tamed whom?